what you're hearing versus what is actually happening on the front line with property. Is there a difference? Stay tuned.
Morning.
Good morning, Dr. Patterson.
How are you?
Excellent, you.
Yeah, good. You know, I wanted to be a doctor for a while. That's fulfilling a bit of a...
You can be Dr. Patterson on the show. There you go.
Yeah, sounds good.
The real estate doctor.
Real estate doctor. I like it.
The lady with the photographic memory. Talk to us about today's topic.
So I thought today it would be a good idea to have a chat about, so obviously last week there was an interest rate rise, and that's all we've been seeing on the news, and it's all we've been hearing from buyers. I thought following on from that, we could have a little chat about what we hear in the media versus what's happening in the market, how they differ, and kind of how they intersect.
Yeah, and I guess if you're not in the industry, you'd probably never know. Is there a difference? What are the differences? And something that we were just talking about off air before, which we're having a bit of a chuckle about, is it's always recyclable and reusable. The same media. It's a bit like the weather.
We were also, I think, what we were talking about was that if it's sunny, the news will show that it's sunny, but no one talks about it. They're like, I'll call it sunny. When it's raining, it is all over the news, like 5 days of rain, and no one shuts up about how it hasn't stopped raining. I think we like to relish in the negatives, and so a lot of the time the media will pick most stories that are negative stories because they know it's going to get traction.
Yes, they do. We do relish in it because if we're using weather as an example, you know, to go around like every hour and go, it's so sunny, it's so beautiful, like you'd be like, shut up, you know. Whereas when it's like raining, like, oh man, I just can't get over this rain. You're like, yeah, I know. And you're right. Interest rates, property market, they're that same tempo, you know. Whereas you can be sort of high and you can be low, and one sells and one doesn't.
Yeah, so I came across an article last night, and it was talking about this, and it had kind of the topics in the property market that make the news, and they had this graph that showed negative versus positive. It was all negative. The positive made up about 10% down the bottom, and it was all just negative, regardless of time of year. It was from January to December. The market changes, but it was always the same.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So could you then draw from that conclusion that it's being manipulated, or would you say that that's because you can't really? Okay, let's go back to weather. You can't really manipulate the weather. It's just going to do what it's done. But one sell, like negative weather, rain sells more than sun. So with that property market, do you think that the negative talk about interest rates or property prices being too high or property prices correcting, do you reckon that actually has an influence on the property market, or it just is what it is?
I think it affects the property market, but I think it's how that any positive can be turned into a negative depending how you frame it. So like if it's sunny, if it's 40-degree day, everyone's loving life, they're at the beach. The media could go, too hot, people are fainting from the heat. That will make the news rather than it's a sunny day. And then it's the same with the interest rate rise. The media tries to go down the route of interest rates are rising, it's going to be so hard for you to borrow. But in reality, we're still at all-time historic lows.
And when the rates were going down, it was like, oh, my God, how low can they go? It's crashing. You know, the economy's rubbish, and it's like, hang on a sec, it's really good. We're paying less interest, and we've got more in our pocket.
Yeah.
So I think it's a really good lesson out of today. The first part of what we've spoken about. I think, you know, it sort of goes back to your disposition or your nature. If you're always taking the highs, running with the highs, you know, happy-go-lucky, I think you get more out of property, probably life, and stuff like that, because you're like, great, interest rates have gone up. There's an opportunity for me to buy something while it's cooling it, peeling everyone back a little bit. Because, Jess, I've got to tell you, and everyone out there today, it's been a very, very long time that I've had people we'll wait and see what's going to happen attitudes, like a very, very, very long time. So that we'll wait and see what's going to happen is slurring itself all the way through the property market. Having said that, I do find that the media does not call the real estate agents much and say what's happening.
Yeah.
So where are they getting their information from?
I think they sometimes will use the data that's provided and just present it in a way that's consumable. But what happens, I think, is that what they say does influence then what happens in the market, because people listen to that and they take it as Bible. So like, even, for example, at the start of the pandemic here, there was few cases, if any cases, but on the news it made out like there was so many cases. And so everyone was panicking and they were stuck inside. Recently, there's heaps of cases, but it's not really on the news anymore. So everyone's just living their life like normal. So what's on the news does affect how we act. So at the moment, if it's saying there's interest rate rises, don't borrow, you're not going to be able to repay your loans, people aren't going to do it, regardless of the fact if you have to dig a little bit deeper.
Yeah, right. You know what's interesting? It's almost changed. When I grew up, the way that the property market would be regulated by the government would be by the Reserve Bank. They'd put the rates up on everyone, and then the banks would put the rates up on everyone as a result. So the boxing right hand of the government was the Reserve Bank.
Mm-hmm.
I find that now the government's so clever that the boxing right hand is not just the Reserve Bank, but probably even more so the media. They're using that to influence the property market, and I don't think it's in a bad way. I just think it's their job and it's what they do. But I think consumer sentiment used to only be influenced one way, and that was from a rate rise with the Reserve Bank. Now the bank's doing it through APRA, with regulatory lending. They're doing it with banks, with the Reserve Bank, and going up, and they're doing it with media. And I think they're working it pretty well, because sentiment of a buyer, if you look at how gentle they are with these rate changes and what an impact the market's had in the last 3 months, it's pretty incredible. And I think media's got a lot to do with it.
I agree. And I think it comes down to the consumer to have to be, to do their own due diligence and try and understand what's going on. Like, for example, with first home buyers, through school, all I heard on the TV was that it's really hard to buy property in Australia. You're never going to be able to do it. And then I knew that there was a $10,000 grant. They were the two pieces of information I had. I knew about the grant because the government wanted to increase first home buyer, and the media was about that. But the media also said the housing market in Australia is ridiculous. So that was the only two pieces of information I knew. From coming into property and then talking to people, I can say that there are actually steps. It is possible to buy your first home, but the way it's presented to you makes it look like an impossible task.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because if you look at the media guys and girls out there, the way they're consuming property information is by data. The way data is consumed is actually real time now these days. It used to be 3 months old or 6 months old. Now it's real time. But even real time is not the true indication, because they may be the sales, and the sales are reported 6 to 8 weeks later after the contract was signed. What's even fresher data is realestate.com. It just sold. And what's even fresher data is open house attendees, through rentals, through sales, And that I think is probably really the coalface when we have open numbers going bananas and people consuming crazily. That's not data that the media has. So it's interesting. Do you reckon the media is going to change their ways in their collecting and reporting?
I don't think so, purely because what they're doing now makes them money. And at the end of the day, it's a job. They're trying to make money and they're trying to do things that will get people to click. And at the moment, people are clicking. So I don't think it will. I think they should be talking, using more face-to-face, like primary resources and talking to people in industry, but I don't think that'll be the case.
How much of it is entertainment?
Lots. People love to relish in like all the things going wrong. Like we're talking about the rain. You spend half the day talking about how it's raining. People do that. It's just how people are. So I think the media doing this kind of fulfills like a need. Everyone does it. They see something on the news and they're talking about it all the time, regardless of if it's good or bad. It's just the way people are, I think.
Traffic.
Yeah. We love to have a win. Yeah.
We love to it, and it's like, haven't you heard enough about, like, if you really want to know what's happening with traffic, just use Google Maps.
Go for a drive.
It's Google Maps.
Oh, frozen there. Sorry, you froze. What did you say?
Google Maps is going to tell you how long it takes to get there. You don't need a traffic reporter.
Yeah.
But why is there still a traffic reporter?
Because people love to see it and then go, oh my gosh, look at that. And
that's the weather. You know, you've got a weather app. You got a weather. It'll tell you what it's going to be doing, and that's media. You know, that's with Google News, Apple News, however you're consuming your information. It's cool, but if you do want to know, ladies and gentlemen, how to get straight to the source, talk to your real estate agent, watch real-time channels like this, talk to your local agents, and they will happily tell you how the market's going. It's our most commonly asked question every single time, like reporting of the weather. We get asked by our favourite clients every day. So that's a cool topic you've hit today.
Yeah, it's a good one. I find it interesting because it reflects like directly onto us. As soon as something's on the news, we get asked in an open home. So I think it's a good topic to have a chat about.
All right, a couple of learnings there. Thank you, Dr. Patterson.
Thanks, Mark.
Anything else you want to add before we go? Want to talk about the weather?
Oh, the weather. Traffic. I think we did. We talked about the traffic before the call.
We did. We were consuming as well.
We were complaining.
But is that also a rapport building exercise?
Yeah, it's a bit of small talk.
Is it something that you've got in common with someone, a thread that you can run with? Geez, how are you? Geez, really hot today. How are you? Oh my God, I got caught in traffic. Is that a rapport building thing, maybe a mechanism? I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
Interesting.
Very interesting. All righty. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, everyone. Take care. Have a great day. Enjoy the traffic. Enjoy the weather. Enjoy the property market. And we'll see you on the show tomorrow. And speak soon.
Bye.